Spacex, a mission to Mars today. Since Starship will not be ready for a while, why not begin a mission to Mars today with what SpaceX already has? If the human race is going to colonize a planet, wouldn't it make more sense to establish a beachhead to facilitate the arrival of the actual mission? So, Elon Musk has said he wants to put humans on Mars, and I am making this video to prove he can, even though Starship is not ready yet. Elon's plan with Starship can be described as a cruise ship, going to Mars, arriving to build a luxury resort, and begin a colony. What I'm talking about is putting a couple of campers on Mars to get stuff ready for when the cruise ship arrives. Well, first let's think of Starship. SpaceX tells us they will take 100 passengers, so let's begin this logically. What will these people need when they get there? This is easy: water, food, parts, and tools. It's true that water has been found on Mars. It is also true that a lot of things can be made with local resources. But wouldn't it be nice to arrive and have, let's say, food and water for a year until everything is ready, just in case something is delayed? So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that SpaceX will go for the idea of a construction crew traveling ahead to set things up for arrival. What will this crew look like? I would think of a construction engineer, a botanist or biologist, an electrician, an IT guy, a medical doctor, preferably with combat experience, and a mechanic. So this is 5 people: habitat, parts, tools, as well as food and water for the trip, the stay in Mars, and the return trip. Now, the launcher SpaceX has today is the Falcon Heavy, which can carry a payload of 16,800 kilos to Mars. If we use a standard man, women eat a bit less, but for the math we will use men. A man will eat 2.5 kilos of food and drink 3 liters of water per day. This is a total of 5 kilos per day. A Falcon Heavy can take a payload of 16,800 kilos to Mars. Therefore, it can take 3,054 days of food and water for one astronaut. This is 8 years. If we're thinking of a crew of 5, and we keep in mind that once the crew arrives it will need food for 3 months to stay in Mars, plus 9 months for the return trip, this will be 25 kilos of food and water per day for 12 months. A full year, or 9,125 kilos. This does not take into account water recycling or other amenities that could be added to the mission. So if SpaceX sends a Falcon Heavy loaded with frozen food, the expeditionary group will have 7,675 kilos of food to spare for contingencies. There's a problem, however. The launch windows for manned missions are every 26 months, when Mars and Earth are closest, and the spare food lasts only 307 days. So launching a second Falcon Heavy, which will give the crew 22.6 extra months of food, is mandatory. This food, added to the 7,675 kilos of contingency food, will give the crew time to survive if they miss one of the launch windows. The 7,675 kilos added to the 16,800 kilos of the second Falcon Heavy will provide 32 months of food and water, 26 months to wait for the launch window, and only 6 months of food for the return trip. We're still 3 months short on food. So the man requires a third Falcon Heavy loaded with 50% food and water and 50% parts. Whatever spare food and water will be left on Mars, waiting for the arrival of Starship. What will this expeditionary crew travel to Mars for? This crew will set up a power plant and a water plant. They could also test construction methods and set up a test fuel plant. So what will they need? This is simple. They will need solar panels, inverters, flexible hoses, water pumps, and lots of wire. We can assume that a 125 kilowatt-hour plant will be able to sustain a population of 100. This means about 400 350 watt-hour solar panels. But since solar radiation on Mars is about 50% than on Earth, we would need 800 solar panels weighing between 20 and 30 kilos each. So the solar array, complete with solar panels, inverters, and wires, will require 2 Falcon Heavy rockets to launch it to Mars. The water system will require a drill, solar-heated pumps, flat flexible hoses that can remain pliable at Martian temperatures, and all this system will need to be heated: the pumps, the hoses, and storage tank or tanks. There is no way around all this. It needs to be done, even for the Starship crew. So, whether it's done before or after Starship arrives, it's really irrelevant. It would be more convenient to have it there when it arrives. The habitats. We have habitats for people in space. We have used them for decades in space stations. and the only thing we would need to add to them is to shield them from radiation in Mars. This can be achieved by lining them in lead sheet or burying them once they're installed there. The fairing of a Falcon Heavy is 13 meters by 5.2 meters. The size of a Destiny module from the ISS is 8.5 meters long and 4.3 meters in diameter. The module weighs 14,500 kilos, so there is room to spare in a Falcon Heavy for one of these modules. So we just have to decide how many modules we should send. Maybe it could be built a little larger and send 2 of them. There needs to be a life support module like the one in the ISS to take care of water recycling, air, etc. Now, the trip. We have seen all this is feasible with current technology. The trip should be made on a Crew Dragon hooked up to a Habitat module. Since the Crew Dragon weighs 9,525 kilos and on a Falcon Heavy we only have 6,800 kilos of payload, and we will need to carry 7,000 kilos of food and water for the trip, if we don't recycle water, the crew will be confined to the Crew Dragon capsule. If we recycle water, we have about 4 tons for extra room on a larger capsule, but it would make more sense to launch a Habitat module in another rocket and dock them in orbit with the Crew Dragon, refuel, and then launch both into Mars. Or launch 2 Falcon Heavy rockets together, match velocities on the way, and dock. I'm not an astrophysicist, but if we could assemble a space station in orbit, docking a capsule, a food container, and a Habitat shouldn't be a problem. Am I insane to suggest this? Let me know in the comments section. Thank you.